didn't know pencil.
Okay, so now
It was there.
Got my radar.
You know what we're talking about, Jeff.
Maybe it was, it's a red next to
Like we did the
we had that issue.
Yeah, now I.
If you go in through,
That's right.
if you go in, through.
Well, good. I just, I saw it on Facebook and I'm just like,
Go into the number one, click on number one.
Good.
And then I clicked on here.
Thursday.
Otherwise,
What are you clicking on that you're not getting back?
Oh, here.
I guarantee you.
So this is what she did.
The 2020 is a rush. But it's
I don't know what's in it.
Honestly, I think that's just a placeholder.
Right.
I can't see anybody. Because even the names wrong.
You guys talk about the years. Yeah, they are, yeah.
Years are wrong, but there's nothing attached to our agenda. No, but you look at the agenda, you go to the.
Yeah, I've got a whole packet.
No, we're not looking for the outline.
Oh, you're looking
agenda. We're looking under.
The actual legislative.
Under old business, the state legislative agenda for 2020 draft. Anyway, I'm going to call this meeting officially to
We
order.
don't have a shot, yeah. Sorry.
Well, they appear.
Yeah, it's on the agenda. So good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Sorry, I'm late. There are days. That's all I can say. Can we start with the roll call?
Rice? Berkowitz?
Here.
Brooks?
Yeah.
Cohen? Newquist? Here. Odalla?
Here.
Trinier?
Here. And Sherry, since you're new, you can lead us in the pledge.
Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You know, people say stuff, and Herb just said something, so I'm just going to say it out loud for the group. In the Pledge of Allegiance, when you do one nation under God, there is no comma between nation and under. And it, for whatever reason, we as Americans put a comma in there.
We learned that in kindergarten and stuck with it, Jackie. You're the only fighter.
I'm just.
We learned it in kindergarten and that is.
It's only so many words a kindergartner can remember at a time.
Right, everything we need to know.
Yes, we learned in kindergarten. You are right. So can I get a motion for the approval of the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, legislative reports. I don't know how many of you have read everything that's been going on. I read the most recent one, but that one's not on here because it came out on Friday or yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. That was an interesting one. Did anybody have any questions about any of them? Concerns, comments, anger? I can recommend a good anger management school. Nothing really? I remember making a note on anything. Like I said, the one that just passed, I have some concerns with, but nothing on the current one. So under old business, we still have the state legislative agenda. Think if anybody has sent me anything really new. Not so much. We still have our little running list that we were asking Sandy to keep compiled for us. The insulin's been taken care of. The drainage fees are still on the list. I don't know if anybody's noticed, but Kohl's is putting in electronic charging stations. Yes, another reason to go and spend money, right? You get free electricity. Macy's has them too, at least in Bowling.
I don't need them, so it's all right.
You will need them eventually.
Maybe not.
I don't know. Truck enforcement, that's the load restrictions. That's the thing with the truck weights and that we've gotten requests to kind of advocate against. The cannabis tax, but we don't know where that's going just yet. E-cigarette ban, they passed that, I believe, didn't they? I think something was, Brent, do you know if anything was passed on the e-cigarettes during the session? No, okay, it's still there. I heard from Department of Transportation from Jeff, who I don't see, that I guess they got some of their state road fund back. So we may not have to do anything on that. We have reduced printing on the voting ballots. We saw that the clerk has shrunk the size of the cards, and that's going to save us a ton of money. We definitely though want to talk to the legislature about this pre-printing of ballots and maybe put something together in our legislative agenda about that. Beth, you had a thing about, and this is Sandy's note, voter list for ballots by mail. Do you know what you were talking about? I know that sounds funny, but you didn't write the note, so.
Yeah, I think just being behind the opportunity for people to vote by mail, but to have a reoccurring, this is my option, instead of every year having to,
Make
or
the
every
request.
election having to request. That's something that I've read about,
Opt in permanently?
and to then show that the required ballots that you need to print and prepare are lower, because you would have a set amount of people that are planning to vote by mail. I'm talking election day. Does that make sense now?
Yeah, yeah, it does. I think so. That's good.
So I wonder if a problem comes up if somebody then, say you know, I vote by mail all the time. There's so much going on in election time and November and all that stuff. So for me, I do vote by mail, but I'm not one of those people who goes out of town. So I wonder if like there's a senior, they go out of town and then they go somewhere else and then they forget to change their address and it goes to the other address. If that could possibly be an issue. I mean, I don't know.
Year to year, it might be different.
And yeah, they might go somewhere else, which
I think it's gonna be real hard to regulate that.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering
I'm
the
not
address.
I am not at all proposing an exact plan like this.
No,
is
I know
exact.
you're not.
But I think that with technology and with election security being, it's something to review and see as a possibility. I mean, we read one of the biggest expenses to the county is the amount of ballots on election day they're required by state law.
Well, yeah, and I know, that's
So-
what we're saying, we don't want to print them all. But-
Right, but that's connected to that. Like, could there be a proper system to let people who want to vote by mail on a regular basis do that and reduce on a permanent basis the amount of printed election day ballots? So it's just a concept to be explored, I think, not a specific bill or
Right.
process that we'd be advocating for. So that was really for discussion purposes with the clerk.
Okay.
But I
Yeah.
can see it could be problematic just to say, hey, everybody.
I don't
Yeah.
know how seniors go, I'm not on that.
You're not there yet.
Well, soon enough, but, I'm married to a farmer, so you know, you don't ever go anywhere typically for periods of time.
The back 40.
You go to the back 40, yeah, that's about it. So, that's the only thing I was thinking. I did have some seniors I met recently that were like, oh, I want to vote in the primary, and they go away for 5 months. So I have a form that I gave them, I said, just fill this out, mail it in, you can choose whether you want to choose a Democratic or Republican, because it'd be for the primary coming up, and then they'll mail it, because they're home for the general. And I said,
I
you
thought
just,
they had to pick for that.
yeah, because it's the primary, so.
Mhm.
So they were happy because they just started doing this and they were concerned we were just having a conversation, so, you know, but, okay, I
Very
just.
good.
was
Yeah,
wondering.
just more things. Julie?
The ballots that have to be printed are based on the number of voters.
Mhm.
So whether or not you're getting a mail-in ballot or walk-in voting, that percentage is still including every registered voter, correct, Maura?
No.
And then,
She has, because Lauren was just at my IT committee meeting last week, or was there, because he's already shaking his head. She has to print she has to have ballots printed for 150% of
No,
the registered.
110%.
110%, 100 and some percent of the
Yeah.
registered.
It's
voters.
110.
Of registered
that-
voters,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Correct.
And when you get a mail-in ballot, you're a registered voter. So by increasing or mailing out mail-in ballots, that doesn't reduce that number. And the second thing with mail-in ballots is if they get destroyed or damaged, or if you don't get it, you have to reprocess that. And it's happened in our household. So that isn't going to help us reduce those costs unless we get that percentage point reduced.
We want that
That's what we
percentage
want to
reduced.
reduce.
Exactly.
It's insane.
Absolutely, because each year, more and more people are either voting by mail, which I don't know how much the number changes on that, but the early voting number has exponentially increased in my area. So yeah, so that's why this number should be reduced,
Yeah.
because more and more people are going at their own convenience and not on election day, unless they make election day a holiday, and then people might go back to doing that, but, which, that's another topic we could talk about, changing Columbus Day.
With early voting, I mean, it makes it convenient for anybody to go vote. When I was in IT for years, I intended on voting several election days, and then I had a system blow up, and I never got out.
Mhm.
So I didn't go before I went in the morning, because I got the kids off to school, then I got to work, and then I'd be there till midnight. So I started early voting because of that.
Yeah, it's the
So-
only way.
So you don't really need a holiday for voting, because you have all these opportunities to vote.
There's an awful lot of people that won't go early and won't do mail. They really have this concept in their head that they have to vote on election day. I've talked to them at the doors. Sherry is shaking her head over there, so.
I like voting
I
on
do too.
election day,
I'm one of them.
but I encourage people to vote early to
Yes.
make sure they go vote.
Yeah, I know I like to. I like to go vote for myself. Now, you all are early, out mail in, but I like to vote for myself. But you know the,
How many times do you vote?
He's not from Chicago.
but the clerk office is even doing more media blitz with early voting. They realize how important that is, how many people are not voting because they might have been out of town, stuff forgot. So they are doing a whole lot more media blitz. I see it so everywhere, vote early. Not often, but early. Vote early.
Right. Beth, were you going to say something?
I think too, the clerk is gonna have something forthcoming about some of these ideas and how it relates to her specific process, right? Isn't that?
She's looking
Hope
into
so.
it. Yeah, they are looking into it.
Yeah, so some of these things were just discussion points for
Yeah.
her to kind of.
So at the IT meeting, she came, and there are a lot of different software needs that they want to look into, because that offers different
Yeah.
things. And then again, she's also restricted by what's approved by the state of Illinois.
Right.
So she's
Well,
limited there as well.
And that's where we can come in by finding a legislator to support a bill that would change some of these requirements. So legislation to have the gas taxes on the gas pump displayed. I mean, I think we've heard about that actually in some of our committee of the wholes, and I don't know, maybe it was public hearing. I remember the gentleman, and you thought I was going to talk about it. It was at the last county board meeting. I didn't talk about it because I don't want to give anybody any ideas that we're actually going to do this until we, find somebody to sponsor it. But yeah, yeah. Include animal control on system for prior police visits to a location. And I think we talked about this last month, and we're trying to get Dr. Shields, is that his name, Beth?
Yeah, Dr. Russler will be here, she will be here.
Okay, at our January meeting, just to talk to us a little bit about, how they interact with the police with animals that maybe have lost control or lost their minds. So that was that. We got an update at the Forest Preserve about the legislative stuff that they're doing, not that that affects us. Anything else?
Well, we were gonna talk about clean construction debris and
Yes.
county.
And that is in our current book, so go ahead.
Okay. So at the last Forest Preserve meeting, it was just discussed how Will County's so unique. I mean, probably most of us know about how much clean construction we have here versus other counties. But also that the root of Will County's concern is the monitoring and the testing of the sites. And I personally want to say that I want to see us making a strong statement that there should be testing and monitoring. I think from the Forest Reserve discussion, we're not against it, but we want to make sure that we're constantly aware of what's being brought in and that there's testing and monitoring. And I just thought it would be productive to have a discussion maybe where we invite Dean. I'm not really sure who is the go-to person, because to me it is more testing and monitoring more than anything, and making sure that we have that ability to do that.
I think they've stepped up their efforts. Brett, do you want to come up and talk a little bit? And Sandy, maybe we can get Dean at our next meeting, just because.
Or at least find out who the expert on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dean, maybe not.
I always say Dean.
Right.
I mean, he's the first one you think of.
Right.
But he'll know who's the.
Well, recently, you know, we kind of backed off of it. As you know, we've been fighting this fight for the last, as long as I can remember, representing the county. It's been one of our priorities. We kind of held off this year because we were hoping and depending on the Supreme Court decision, and we lost.
We lost.
And it wasn't based upon the groundwater monitoring aspect. It was based upon the way basically the lawsuit was filed, that the Pollution Control Board did follow their procedures, and they were found, am I correct in saying?
Yes.
Basically, it wasn't based upon, you know, the groundwater monitoring aspect of it, but they did follow with the way the underlying statute was written. They did follow protocol. There was no basis, according to the Supreme Court, based upon our challenges by the state's attorney and attorney general. So we're back to square one. But in doing so, we probably made a lot more progress than we really realized, because the EPA, due to our pressure, finally went out and did a random testing of all the sites in the state. And the results came back with an astonishing 80% violation rate.
Did you say this the other day?
I probably did not.
I was going to say, if you did, honey, I tuned right out.
Well,
Missed it.
I'm not going to suggest you tuned out, but a lot of people tune out when I talk, so
No, sometimes there's
just
other
ask
things
my
on
wife.
my mind.
What?
Don't bust yourself right in the room, man.
Thank you. No, it brought, the EPA, I think, was under your impression, because we were making such a push on this for such a long time, that the former administration decided they were going to go out and test all the sites at random, which is the first time this was ever done statewide. And they came back with 80% violation. Now, I don't want to indicate that these violations were of all scary type violations. There's a lot of things that were, you know, more minor and whatnot, so I don't want to put it all into one category to scare you. But the significance of that is that the determination was that, you know, maybe we should do a better job of site testing more often, being that we have a delegation agreement here within the county. We have our own capabilities of doing our own testing, because we are an arm of the EPA here within the county. So Dean and his, I think he's got multiple landfill inspectors that are certified that can do this. We'll end up, it's a cost, but we do have a tipping fee. I don't know if you read recently in the Chicago Tribune, they had an article about how the federal EPA and the state EPA were basically underfunded.
Got it right here,
Okay.
80% or 38% in the past decade reduction in the Illinois EPA department.
So the suggestion was, and this has been ongoing, is that we get a small tipping fee on the CCDD sites. You know, maybe after viewing that article and that, there's probably been a call that because EPA is fee-driven now as far as their budget, and they're short-staffed, that maybe it's an opportunity that we also look at the cost of the tipping fees at some of these sites for increased inspections and whatnot. Groundwater monitoring has always been a strong pushback. You know, as you know, and I said this at the Forest Reserve, is we're up against a lot of larger, you know, we're up against not only the road builders and other people that use these types of facilities, labor, whatnot. I mean, we have a whole host of people that have teamed up to kind of be against us, and we're unique because we have so many different, we have the most facilities within the state of Illinois in our county. So it's not like we have every other county jumping on our bandwagon, because DuPage doesn't have them. I think Kane has some, but some of the other counties are not as, this is not a big enough issue and probably in their minds. So we kind of fight this battle a little bit by ourselves, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't fight the battle. So my suggestion is that we take another look at this, put this on our agenda, maybe not just attack the groundwater monitoring, but look at more fees, more increase, and do some of our own testing to try to get a benchmark to make sure that we have a little bit of historical data to argue why we need some additional groundwater monitoring. We do have a unique situation. I mentioned this at Sports Reserve. We have one of the facilities within our county that brings it in from outside the county by barge. We have no jurisdiction on that transfer site up in Cook County. We cannot go there and test the site, you know, so they're certified up in Cook and they deliver it down to here. So we have to figure out a way to address that.
So I have a thought that, I mean, I know we're concerned about the groundwater and we can certainly go to the place and do some testing and guessing. But if not, then maybe we need to change some language and get that through. But maybe we ought to have a process where if they're going to take this stuff out of the landfill, once they put it in, or out of the quarry, that we have the right to test it. Because I mentioned at Forest Preserve, there's been, I think, 2 locations in Bolingbrook where the clean construction debris has been removed from the quarry and placed in our community on sites that are currently being developed. I believe one is Liberty something being built by Pulte, Liberty Homes, Liberty Estates, I don't know what it's called. And then the other one I think is the shopping mall across the street from Portillo's. It was a vacant lot forever and a day on Boughton Road. It was like the only undeveloped spot forever. And now they're finally developing it. And I think they brought landfill in from there as well. And if I remember the FOIA document that I did, I think it was all from the quarry on Royce Road, Elmhurst, Chicago Stone.
Right.
What is it? I'm missing a name, but you know what I'm talking about. So maybe we ought to have the right to test anything before it gets reutilized, in addition to going to test just in general.
Yeah, this is something, you know, you just brought that to my attention.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that they put it in and take it out. That's something new that I've heard of looking for Phil.
Somewhere at home or in my massive email, I have the documents. But yeah, and I don't know where else they're doing it. I just happened to get word from a sitting board member that it was happening, so I did a FOIA and I found out, yeah, this is for real. And I know that's a big concern, so. I didn't know the 80% violation rate. That's.
Well, again, that sounds very, from if you just read it, and it sounds terrible, but I want to make sure that all the violations were not necessarily contaminated type soils. They were more, there are other type of violations, paper, things that are not supposed to be in there, like somebody found a boat in one of these things, like an old abandoned boat. Yeah. So, I mean, there is probably some things that go on that, but let's put it this way, if they went out and finally looked at the sites and found an 80% violation rate in one shot, that probably means that there's been some other things. And I think the more, if anybody's being watched, if they don't think they're being watched, they have a tendency to bend the rules. I don't want to say break, because we probably have some very good guys that play by the rules. I don't want to put everybody into one snapshot, but then we have people that can get away and bend the rules.
Can we get a copy of that report? Do you?
Sure, I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah, I would like to read through it. I don't know about anybody else, but I mean, if it's just weird stuff like boats and paper and, you know, railroad ties or something, maybe I'm not so freaking out. Maybe railroad ties are bad. But I would definitely like to read it. Beth?
I was just going to say our current request is that Will County continues to support legislation that actively pursues efforts both legislatively and legally that requires CCDD and uncontaminated soil site operations to conduct groundwater testing and monitoring. So I think we could even say a little bit more about it and address also the fact that there's already an outcome, because it just mentions in here that Will County is challenging. So I think that we need to be more aware of what the current status is, but also update the language in our agenda to reflect current
Right, well, the legal aspect was because we did have a legal action against it, and that is kind of mute right now. So, I mean, I would assume that you can generically put it, we can try to, as I mentioned, Beth, to you, that, the environmental groups have been very much willing to participate in our efforts to, go forward with this, and, depending on which side you're on, environmental groups can be very, welcomed, and then they can be very shunned. So, I mean, I think they're a good advocate to have on our side in certain elements of Springfield. And I've had conversations with them this last spring session of saying, hey, what's Will County going to be doing? And our answer was this, waiting to hear about the Supreme Court ruling to find out our next steps. We have that answer, so whatever the board decides, the committee decides to move forward on, we can try to pursue and bring up this debate. It's an uphill battle. I mean, but I think we've made some real inroads and got it on the radar, at least. Before it wasn't even on the radar until the EPA kind of went out on their own and basically did this testing, probably to try to quiet us down and say, listen, we didn't find anything. Well, unfortunately, they found a lot. So it kind of backfired. So we'll move forward in which any way you guys want to pursue.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Jim?
I'd like to point out, initially, we were much more robust on what we were asking. We were asking initially for these quarries to be treated like any other landfill, that they be lined, they be tested. We kind of, over time, got down to this groundwater monitoring, because the rest was going nowhere. In part because these these quarries have closure documents that basically allow them to fill it up, and they're saying, hey, we're just meeting what the law requires us to do, and that's to fill up the hole. Which I think complicates it a little bit. You tell me now they're filling it then unfilling it. If they're now selling fill out of there, I don't know how that fits in with their closure document.
I mean, to me, if they want to fill one up, they ought to fill the one along Joliet Road. But
I guess my point is that we were much more robust initially on what we were demanding, including having.
What do you mean, like initially, when they were?
When they were first approved.
Okay.
By the state of Illinois.
Thank you.
Which I think we kind of initially pushed it. Well, there was two entities that pushed it. The road builders wanted a less expensive place to dump, and the city of Chicago at the time was going after the Olympics, and they needed someplace to quickly demolish and send to debris somewhere. So
But Jim,
that was kind of the push originally.
I mean, I think another reason why we aren't pushing on that anymore, and you can tell me what your thoughts are, maybe Brent knows too, but they've already started using these quarries, so now how do we get them to line them? You're not going to dig all that stuff out.
I think that day's gone.
Yeah, that's gone.
All I'm saying is that initially, we were trying to be much more aggressive.
Yeah.
And it really came down to, in the end, we were most concerned about the contamination of the underground water, so we saw about monitoring. And of course, their arguments always been it's too expensive. I still think it's going to be a disaster someday.
Well, we can definitely bring up the issue that they're taking the stuff out now
And we do
and
have
see.
the right to test. Now, Dina said, hey, look, I can only test so much.
Right.
So they randomly check loads coming in, I believe, unannounced. And, that's about the most we could probably do. We could be out there more often. I think we also talked about one time increasing the fees.
Yeah.
So we could have a more robust inspection program.
Yeah, and that's certainly
And that could
something.
still be something we could push, maybe.
Yeah, definitely the fees. Nick, did you want to add
Well,
something?
I mean, just for members who haven't been as familiar, because Jim, we've been on this issue for years, like you said. I mean, it started off as more robust because it was really ramping up earlier, I don't know when it was, like early 2000s,
Yeah.
but But at the end of the day, the issue is, like our Prairie View landfill's lined, it's tested, it's monitored. These are holes in the ground that have been blasted with dynamite and other things, and they've created cracks. You're just pouring stuff in there with no liner, so it seeps into the ground. It can seep into the water supply, and very simply, it could contaminate the water supply. And when like over half of Will County's population gets their drinking water from groundwater, not Lake Michigan at the current time. It may change in the future. That's a real concern because you could have potentially a Flint, Michigan type water supply issue where people can't drink their water because it's contaminated. And the issue is, I think when we've gone through this legally, it's like people who are owners of these are real concerned if they don't know exactly what's all gone in because they just accepted loads from sites that they've never certified what's in there. Who's responsible for the cleanup? And so I think, and I sat through a hearing with Brett in Springfield talking about taco standards, which are the standards on how they grade all this stuff. Your eyes roll back in your head, listen to all this, but it is a very scientific process. But just as a segue maybe on this topic to some other things, this is an issue that, as Jim said earlier, our colleagues in the collar counties really haven't been that exercised about because they don't have them. We have them. But this is something we could go to them when we have specific legislative ideas and ask them to support us because we have a SACO now, which has, I would suggest maybe this committee wants to look at their list of ideas too, because I was just at a meeting the other day. They have a long list that I think is being considered at their meeting this week. Some of them apply to us, some of them don't apply to us, but whether we want to take positions, I think it would be good for this committee to look at it because
this
then
should be on their agenda.
for the executive's office, when we go to the meeting with the county leaders or when some of our board reps go to those. But this is, the CCD issue, my point is, it's an issue that if we have a concrete new legislative idea, we should bring that to them and get them to try to support it because we'll get more, movement if we have the collar counties and Cook and some of the big counties around the state getting on board with it, I think.
Good idea. Julie?
Nick, can you tell me, do we test the water in areas like Wayland Lake, which is right next to the Vulcan Quarry? Do we test that water and see if there's any contaminants in there?
I don't believe so. Can double check. I don't know for sure, but I don't believe so.
I would think that that's maybe something we would want to consider doing and throughout the county.
My point before was like Waste Management, who's our partner in the Prairie View landfill. They have all kinds of legal requirements and citing, I mean, Mary, correct me if I'm wrong, part of the citing documents and all, but the law really drives a lot of that. For the CCDDs, they don't have those same requirements. It's cheaper for that reason because they don't have the cost, and that's where, I mean, some of the materials that go into the CCDDs, if they were more nasty materials, they probably should go to our Laraway site because that handles special waste from all over, from Chicago, from the surrounding areas. That's treated very differently, and it's in a much more, it's treated, it's put in a lens, it's monitored there too, I think.
Well regulated.
But yeah, so, but this is just like the low-cost alternative for people who just want to get rid of, like Jim said, a lot of that was driven by the Olympic push, and they were expecting they were going to have to do a lot of demolition of old buildings and stuff that had arsenic and, or asbestos, excuse me, not arsenic, asbestos, and other things like that, all kinds of nasty stuff that, but it's, we don't test that because that's not the county process really. I mean, I don't know if the Forest Preserve maybe does, but I don't think so though.
I got it. And Judy, I do have on here your concern about the Eagle Road interchange. So that's what I have so far. I haven't heard from department heads. We're going to be putting this document together pretty quickly. So, yeah, last call for,
We talked before a little bit in committee about the initialing of ballots.
oh, yeah, that needs to be on.
And,
John Connor is supposedly going to put some legislation forward.
I reached out to my legislators as well that cover my district, but I know that was something we talked about, and
Yes.
I didn't know if we were going to put that on the agenda, or I just didn't hear us talk about it again today, so I thought I'd do I mean, I think
You
it's a
know,
good
I'm
idea.
gonna leave it to our lobbyists to tell me what the best strategy is, whether we wait for the legislator to put a piece of legislation together and then we
Right.
support it,
No,
or if
totally
we put it in
understand.
our agenda, so we're gonna be talking this afternoon or
Right.
as soon as land use is over.
Okay.
Might be tonight.
Do you know what
Oh,
are you familiar with what we're
No,
discussing?
and if you had brought it up to, if John Connor or somebody has indicated that they're in, you know, we get this all the time, that there's bills introduced from all sorts of things that we either, you know, we come back and say, what do you want to do with it? And of course, as a General Assembly moves forward, it's not always very timely because of committee hearings and course of meetings that we can, you know, usually we have some method of getting a yes or no
Right.
on legislation. So we're more than willing, as bill starts getting introduced, to look at it. But if you do have an initiative, and you've been talking about something, we should address it and put it on our legislative agenda.
Yeah, we'll talk about it here, actually. So, when a voter comes to vote at their polling place, they announce their name. Their name's looked up in a poll book. They are asked to sign a receipt. And I'm going from memory, by the way, because I haven't voted in person in a long time. But you're asked to sign a receipt saying you've received a ballot. They give you a ballot. An election judge is supposed to initial the top of that ballot. There's like anywhere along the top. Frequently, election judges don't initial it. We don't know why. There was kind of a rhyme to this last event that occurred. It was all mostly located in one particular polling place. But if the judge forgets to initial a ballot, and after the election is over and all the ballots have been counted, if a candidate doesn't like the outcome, they can do a discovery process and look at these ballots. And if they find ballots that don't have an initial on them, they can ask that those ballots be thrown out. And that basically is disenfranchising that voter. Their vote is just randomly chosen and thrown in the trash. And it changes the outcome of elections. And this happened in 2008 with a county board member, and she spent a lot of money to defend her seat. Money that was, you know, not necessarily needed to be spent. But at any rate, this has come up again recently, and a school board election in Bolingbrook, Romeoville area for Valley View, and the sitting board member, after serving on the school board for, I don't know, 5-6 months, was removed from office. And in fact, the minute the judge finished ruling on the case, he then swore in the new school board member, or not new, because he was an incumbent that was voted out, and he was immediately sworn into office before even attending another school board meeting. So we don't think it's right that people's votes get thrown out. Clearly, we have a record that that person showed up, they signed a form, they voted. Doesn't make sense that their ballot should be thrown out. And so Representative Connor, should he be successful in his election to the state senate, has agreed and is going to be sponsoring some legislation to change that process, improve that process, do something to make that process work right.
I'm just wondering, the mail-in ballots,
Mm-hmm.
when they are mailed out,
Mm-hmm.
are they initialed?
They are initialed when they,
And
either
at
on
what
the way
time?
out or the way in. I think it's when they come back. But I can't say, we'd have to ask Lauren for certain. I don't know.
Now, I noticed at the last election, something that concerned me was that prior to being counted, they were already opened and they were sitting in bins. And to me, that was concerning because you had hundreds and hundreds of ballots. Some were open, some weren't. And I asked one of the gentlemen there from the clerk's office, I said, I was always under the impression that the ballots were not opened, the envelopes were not opened until they were being counted.
I would think
And
they would have to be.
They said to me that as a matter of convenience, periodically, they'll open some of the ballots prior to the day of counting. And some are, some aren't. That's concerning to me. And I question that, And I was just told that, well, they just do this out of convenience because if we had to open up all these envelopes this morning, it would take so much more time. That's something that I think we need to look at.
Have you addressed this with the?
I spoke with
Lauren?
I spoke with her staff that morning, and I
And they were
expressed.
permanent election staff?
Yes,
Not just- okay.
yes, they were.
All right, because that is concerning, but I know they report on a daily basis,
Yes.
each person's ballot that's come back, but again, I don't do this every day, I don't know what the envelope looks like when it comes back. Is the
So-
name and address on there that they could actually record it without opening it?
So there are two envelopes.
Yeah,
On the outside, it identifies who the ballot came from in the outside envelope, so that they can mark it and say, yes, we received it. And-
that's what, yeah.
Right. On the inside is a second envelope that is not identified that includes the ballot. Sometimes, just because of the procedures that were involved in the past, they send out the application and the ballot at the same time, and the application was supposed to be in the outer envelope, not inside the ballot envelope. But sometimes people get confused and they put the ballot on the inside in the ballot envelope. In which case, then, in order to verify, that's what has the person's signature, and to verify that this came from, they would have to open the ballot and check the application to make sure that, in fact, this is the person who sent the ballot in. So sometimes you have that. But some of the envelopes in the past too, because the morning of would take so long, they would in fact staff would open the ballots. There would be people there present, the staff are judges, and the law does allow them to start processing those in advance.
And there's judges there, election judges?
Well, some of the staff are election judges.
Okay.
So they constitute election judges.
And they always have one
So,
for each party?
and poll watchers can be present, and I think
Okay.
that this year there are going to be poll watchers present
Okay.
when the ballots come in and they are processed. Now, whether or not the current clerk intends to open those envelopes this year or not, I know I believe, I shouldn't say I know, but I believe that she is, reconsidering or looking at that policy
The process.
to decide whether or not they will do that again this year.
Well,
But that
I
wouldn't
just
be the
want to
same
note
in every county, though,
that in
because-
this case, they were opened,
Yeah.
but not processed.
No, well,
So-
that's part of the
Yeah.
processing. Opening it is part of the processing, and so when the law allows them to start processing, that includes opening the envelope.
And
They are kept under lock and key in a vault so that they cannot be messed with, and only certain people have access to that, so it's very secure. Yeah, but
Yeah,
yes.
no, Julie, you bring up a good point, and just because maybe we're reevaluating how we do things in our county and making sure that things are a little tighter or more secure, that doesn't negate, that isn't gonna help what happens in the other counties. So maybe when we have Representative Connor looking at this initially process, maybe there should be some look-see at some of the other processes. Judy?
Yes, so my question was, why were the ballots up in your area, though they weren't initialed, not accepted? Is that because somebody thinks they could have been a fake ballot?
No, it's
No?
just a loophole in the law. It's a way to throw out ballots.
No, because it would be, and I don't know, when you.
I mean, I can't believe that these were like just somehow stuffed in there. I mean,
To me, what
because they were
would
for
make
both
sense is-
candidates. It
yeah,
wasn't just one candidate.
It was both.
It was both. And I mean, I watched these
Because they had one
ballots,
judge at one place that just forgot to sign.
and it was mostly one location, and it was forgetting to sign. And the candidates that were voted for were a myriad of different candidates. In other words, somebody didn't go in there just looking at one candidate to not initial that ballot so it could be thrown out. So-
Right. And I don't even know, but when the ballots go in, when you feed it into the machine at the polling place, are they tagged at all to say they were brought in? I mean, you get your little card and everything.
The machine beeps if
The machine
if it
beeps,
doesn't.
but is it tagged? Because to me, that would be a verification it went through the machine.
Oh, like a timestamp or something?
Yeah, like a timestamp.
I
Do you
don't
know?
think so. No, I mean, I do think the initialing,
the intent behind it when the legislation was passed was in fact to verify that this ballot was given at the polling place.
Right.
And is a valid ballot. Now, that doesn't mean that we ever reached a time when that too could be reconsidered, and maybe there is some other process that works better. But for now, the law is it's a valid ballot if it's initialed by the judge. And it's unfortunate that this is the outcome, but it is only, it's not like the clerk is going to throw out those ballots. They are done as part of an objection process. So,
Yeah, the clerk doesn't.
and hopefully, you gotta remember, there's typically 5 judges at the polling place. You would hope one would be watching the other and there would be backup. I don't know that this is a systemic problem. It's happened on occasion and absolutely unfortunate when it does.
Yeah, it's happened in 2 different elections that I'm aware of, in 2 separate, totally disparate locations. I mean, one was like south in the county. I believe that's the seat that Joe Van Dyne and Don Gould hold, and the other one was up in Bolingbrook for, specifically Bolingbrook. I mean, there were 5 precincts examined, but most of the problem was found in one specific location. So, any rate, it's definitely something we're looking at, and we'll look to you guys to tell us the best way to move forward on that. Anything else for the state?
Yeah, so I was just thinking that, and we've had the conversation before, is that 2 things. One, in the past we've had a resolution opposing the state using the eminent domain until they have a FAA approval, funding source, things like that. We're back at the point where, state's trying to build the airport by creating an interchange that gets off to Eagle Lake Road, which is
I
terrible.
mentioned that. Yeah.
And so the thing is, though, right now the legislation as it sits allows quick take. Okay, so I'm not sure if our legislators would go ahead and want to do quick take to try and boost people to become, if there are any developers out there. I'm wondering if we as a board might consider a resolution opposing the use of quick take until they have completed the master plan, until they have a funding source and obviously approval from the FAA. It's something I'd like us to discuss, and that's more than just the meeting here today. And then I really think of importance is having, Aaron Quick come in, because we have a really new board from when I got on. There's a lot of new people in here, to go over what his issues were with the vagueness of Senate Bill 20. I don't know the code, the state law or anything, but those vagueness, and he told us to be concerned about. I think we need to look at that. That's an issue. This is in Will County. Will County should have, if an airport is ever built, I will not be living here. You all will be living here, and you will be dealing with whatever mess that legislation has put forth. And I think it's very important that as a county, we protect our citizens, we protect our land that's in our county, because it is ours. These are our residents, not Cook County's, not anyone else's. So I think we should look at that legislation and maybe put it on our agenda to have Aaron Quick come in and do that type of thing, because he was a consultant hired to do the airport study way back in the day. So,
Well, 2 things. I don't know where Aaron Quick is in the world today, if he would even be
he's
affiliated.
still at Farnsworth,
It's
right?
Farnsworth.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you. And 2, I think we had a committee of the whole scheduled by our speaker to talk about the airport. For whatever reason, I think it got postponed.
Well, because of
so-
all the other stuff that was going on.
So I'm guessing that that's still on the agenda and it's going to be coming forward. I don't know about Aaron Quick, but
Yeah, we
But
do
yeah.
intend to have a committee hall regarding the South Suburban Airport, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
We're kind of waiting too to see if that Eagle Road designation changes to like Offner Road, or Nick, what's the other road? Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
I thought, well, Offner was the original road.
But here's the thing, even so.
Right. No,
To
I
spend
get what you're saying.
$205 million for an interchange off I-57, right between Peatone-Wilmington Road and Moni Manhattan, that both those interchanges need a be completely redone. They're not safe for the semis. To build a brand new one in the middle of those 2
Yeah, I
is a ridiculous use of tax dollars.
totally understand your argument, and I do know that the mayors of the eastern part of the county, and IDOT, and Jeff Ronaldson, who isn't here today, and the county executive's office, have all been meeting to discuss the best options. regarding both an east-west.
Right, we have had those
Route there, right.
conversations, I don't know if
And
we've
they
had more
continue.
meetings.
They continue. it's
Well,
just
if
that-
those meetings are going on, I would like to be invited. I'm sure that Sherry would like, because Sherry's brand new
Sure,
to the
sure.
game here.
Yeah.
I would like to be invited, included in every single one of those meetings, because I don't want people coming and asking me questions about what's going on in my district when I don't have any idea about it. And Sherry's very new, and her and I will get together at some point and talk about all the stuff that's
Well,
going
if I put
on.
together a meeting, you ladies will be invited.
Well, whoever puts on a meeting,
Yeah.
we should be invited.
Fair
Okay.
enough.
All right, so that brings us to the end of our old business. We haven't really talked too much about new business, but we do have, I have not talked too much about the federal agenda, but we do have it under the new business section today. I don't know if there's anything anybody wants to bring forward. Maura looks like she's chomping at the bit there.
No, I was just going to mention that our federal lobbyists will be in next week.
Right.
We plan on having almost probably a day-long meetings with various departments, making sure that, they're coming in order to make sure that our federal priorities are more in order. And I think Nick might be able to touch a little more on that since he's a little more tuned into the federal agenda. That's more the executive's office.
Yep, I really do like that process, even though this will be my first time participating. Beth?
Is that in lieu of people going to Washington or just in addition to?
That's in addition to.
Just in addition to,
Apparently,
they
this
come
is-
out here, they want to talk to our people, so we don't have the
Right.
financial capacity to send everybody out to Washington, so it's great that they come here.
Yeah, this apparently has been a pretty regular occurrence, but since we weren't the chair and vice chair of the committee, we didn't know about it. So, Nick, you
Well,
want
I
to say
mean,
something?
just on both the state and the federal, just kind of like the budget process, we do a big collection of ideas, and then the federal lobbyists, or like with Brent and Julie, we've done research on it, and then we bring them to the board, because the committee, I don't think, probably most committee members, it's practical or really the right way to do it, is to have you sit through days and days of meetings, where the staff who are here full-time do that, and then when we get concepts, or if you give us suggestions, we go research. So Smith Dawson has come in every year, they've met with certain groups that are more relevant to the federal side of things, they flesh out ideas, and then we'll bring that back to the board, and then we can tweak until we get to a final product. So that's what next week is, just them meeting with things like land use with the DuPage River study, some of the housing issues, DOT on federal grant opportunities, that kind of stuff. So we'll do this initial kind of capture of information, and then we can send it to you electronically, but also bring it back to the committee.
And I'm going to try to actually attend some of those meetings, definitely in the morning and maybe in the afternoon. I have a noontime engagement, but just because I'd like to tell you all what happens, and,
Always, just like we're doing with the state legislative, if there's ideas or something that you want more information about, get them to Maura or myself, and we will investigate it and bring it back. It's trying to make the best use of the time you have here, and we don't think that's probably the best use of your time to sit through hours of meetings of those, but a lot of it's just gathering data and then something else to do. But Jim,
speak for yourself.
and we always have the open meetings issues too, we gotta be careful.
Julie?
Nick, I have a question for you. Last month, you mentioned that you would forward to us a list of the 2019 mandates, and I was wondering if you did that. I hadn't seen it, so I was wondering if I missed it.
Well, we can resend it, but I think that was part of one of the ASACO reports that was sent out, but I'll get it to send it to the board office to send out.
I must have chewed out for that one.
What is it?
What is it you're looking for?
What is it?
There was, ASACO did a recent list of unfunded mandates that the General Assembly had done. And Joe McCoy from ASACO, we have the county association now for legislative stuff. They're tracking all that kind of stuff. So they did a list of all the unfunded mandates that have come out. But that was part of a couple months ago.
Yeah, I was going to say, I do remember their list of all the spring session
I'll hunt it
things
down
that
and send it out.
passed. Yeah, because I was looking for something the other day, dealing with open meetings, and I found it there, but I didn't remember the unfunded mandate thing, and that's, I know, always a big deal with our group. We don't like unfunded things. We don't have any money. We can't print it. We haven't figured out how yet. Well, maybe we could talk to those people in our printing department. Okay, anything else on the federal agenda? Nope. Oh, wow. Maybe finish at a decent time. Any other new business? Okay, public comment. Do we have anybody from the public that would like to comment on anything at all? Any public comment? Come on, public.
Shaking their head.
I know, we have public and they're not commenting. Yes, we don't always have public. It's kind of a nice thing to have public. I don't have any particular announcements. Don't know what I would announce if I was announcing. But I'm still going to say I'm a chairperson or a chair. I am not a man. I keep reiterating that. Do we have a need for executive session? No. We're the legislative committee. Our next meeting is going to be January 14th. Motion?
Chairperson to adjourn.
Thank you.
I second this motion, Chairperson.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Hey, look at us finishing early. This is like a record.
Ladies and gentlemen,